Talk Radio.
He took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. By some, he's been called controversial.
I'll keep my freedom, I'll keep my guns, try to keep my money and my religion too. Now, keep in mind that some of my guests have been approached by, Homeland Security or FBI saying, why are you going on the Clay Douglas show?
My message to those guys, if they're listening this morning, is go get a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll learn something.
We both took the same oath, to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that. I'm going to keep my big VA, keep my friends the same, keep the government out of my business, and y'all can keep the change.
He is the free American, Clay Douglas.
We know what we need, we know who to blame.
Catch the Free American Hour, weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern.
I'll keep the USA and y'all can keep the change.
For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamerican.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8621.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas. And we are recording. My guest today is Joshua Daniels. Been on my show before. Hello, Joshua. How are you?
I'm doing well, Clay. How about you, sir?
Well, I'm doing just fine. Joshua, you're really high up on my list of people that are coming up with unique and innovative ways to do things. And the last time you were on my show, we talked about the boats, the floating Liberty villages. Are you still working on that project?
Oh, yes. Yes, we're moving forward. I've got, there's a writer from Bloomberg Business Weekly has contacted me to write us up. And he interviewed me, and he's pulling all that together. Now, turns out I was mistaken. That's not going in the Bloomberg Business Weekly. That's going in a different publication that is brand new. It's actually going to be in their, I guess, their leadoff issue of this publication.
Now, tell us about that. Let's refresh everybody what we're talking about. You have a plan for a design of boats that maybe a little bit more unsinkable than the Titanic?
Maybe a little bit. Well, first time I was talking about the Titanic, that was actually the Olympia that got sunk. It was a giant insurance fraud. But anyway, yeah, these are floating homes that will go anywhere in the world there's 3 feet of water, including through a hurricane or up a river. They make all their own electricity, all their own hot, cold, fresh running water. The larger ones grow all their own food. They carry a car or a truck in a garage that's on board, and they back up to a beach or a boat launch and load and unload that vehicle. And they do all this without a drop of fuel.
That's pretty incredible. I've said that, Joshua, the reason that UFO are so top secret, why nobody talks about it, why they do so much to discount it, they don't want you knowing you could we've probably been flying to the moon for the last few thousand years, having lunch on the moon, and be back in Geneva by dinner, and without any gasoline, without generating anything like that. So,
some of the smartest people in the world are Russian aircraft designers, and I saw a documentary talking with a couple of them where they had worked out one that actually takes its fuel from the air. And they explained how it worked, and I'm sorry, but I forget exactly how it was doing it. But I went, I understood it, and I said, oh my God, that would actually work. And they said, again, the faster it goes, the more fuel it makes, and it can actually be filling its tank at high speed, while at low speed it takes, you're taking fuel out of the tank. not everything else? Why not?
Think about how difficult would it be just to put, some type of electric generators on your wheels while they're rolling down the road. They could be generating electricity. There's so many different ways to do this, and magnetics is a big one. It's basically a violation. I've talked to people that have built the magnetic generators, and they tore them down because they were afraid that the government was going to come after them, because it's a violation of national security to screw with the energy policy or the banking policy, isn't it?
I don't know if it's an official violation. I do remember one inventor whose name I forget. Back in about 2005 or 6, I checked back in on his website to see how his research was going, and I found a note. All the pages were down, and there was just a notice that said, "I'm done." On whatever date, I was driving home, and I was pulled over by black SUVs, surrounded by black SUVs, and men who did not identify themselves showed me pictures of my wife and my kids and said, "End your research, burn your notes." And I'm doing it. It's not worth my kids' lives, not worth my wife's life. And,
I've had they do operate that. I have a father-in-law. I've had a couple of father-in-laws.
Okay.
Actually, more than that, but that's a whole other story. But one of them worked on the Aswan Dam. He was incredible. His name was Sheriff Babcock, and he could build anything. He had a truck. He had a welder on the truck. He could build anything. And he was married to my ex-wife's mother, and he built a Pogue carburetor. He built a Pogue carburetor for his truck. He was getting 60, 70 miles to the gallon, and two guys in black suits showed up and said, "Mr. Babcock, we need you to pull that carburetor out of your truck there and destroy it, and the one you're building for your neighbor, Colonel Conrad. You need to take those off." "Yeah, what happens if I don't?" "We'll kill you." And he believed him. He took him off.
Oh, yeah. See, the way things are right now, that with that sort of stuff going on, I'm almost at the point where I'm ready to pack heat 24 hours a day everywhere I go, and screw the law, because basically with the NDAA, the United States Congress and the New World Order pointed the government at me and pulled the trigger.
Yes, sir. They did that. They have set us up almost exactly the same way that they set up the Russians. They've just got better technology today.
But and my attitude about that is, realistically, if I try to think about survival and hope, I won't. If I focus on the job in front of me and killing that enemy soldier whose head pops out of his foxhole, I might make it somewhere.
What they're doing to us right now, Joshua, it's like, man, I've talked about this. This has been on my mind for a long time. I said, one of the problems we have is, how do you fight evil without becoming evil? And I think your idea for the boats, my idea for the Liberty Villages concept, and that's what I've got right now up on my thing, because the other thing that you're doing today, besides the boats, is you're manufacturing solar generators.
Yeah,
I've got them up on my website now, and that's why I brought you up here to talk about this. In looking at this, you just mentioned the NDAA, and what's happening here is they're trying to set the people against the police. They're scared to death. They're scared to death because people like Sheriff Richard Mack, Sheriff Larry Deaver, Sheriff Joe Arpaio are standing up to them, and they have just passed a law. Biden's son has basically tried to say in Delaware that the sheriff can't even arrest anybody. So we're at a war here, and they're certainly trying to point the police. This whole black-white thing with the Trayvon Martin was was he killed by this, or would this do, would this do, would this do, you know?
Yeah.
They're trying to create.
Well, remember this stage of the New World Order's plan calls for either World War III, or if they could just provoke total chaos worldwide, that would do just as well, because the ultimate goal is total chaos. We're all killing each other, and they, hiding in their remote mountain fastnesses or underground bases, or even, if they've got big enough spaceships, hanging out around outside the atmosphere, they wait it out in safety and security, and then when we're all down to no more bullets, and we're making black powder with saltpeter that we scraped off an outhouse wall, then they have warehouses full of trucks and ammo and fresh uniforms and good food, and probably even the people to use all that stuff, just waiting to come out and take over. This is not a far-fetched plan at all. All it takes is money, and they create money out of thin air.
Yeah, well, like Carl Klang said years ago, hey, if you got your very own printing press, you can print up all the money that you need. Pretty soon you'll own the whole neighborhood.
Yeah, and they have done that. Yeah, that's what they've been working toward. And so with the kind of preparation that they've been able to put into this, and I would take Albert Pike's letters as absolute proof that it is preparation. It's multi-generational preparation.
Yes, let me expand upon that. Albert Pike predicted the First World War, the Second World War, and a Third World War to be fought with Muslims. This is your highest level Masonic New World Order great work type.
Yes,
150 years ago, he was a Confederate general, and he told you about the war that they're pushing us towards with Iran right now.
When he predicted this, folks, in 1999, I believe was the date on the letter, he named, well, first of all, he said World War I would be fought to destroy the great monarchies, which is exactly what happened. World War II, he said, would be fought between Nazism and communism. He named Nazism 30-odd years before it existed. And it would be fought between Nazism and communism to establish Zionism. He named Zionism. Well, it had been invented, I guess, the year before. Maybe he had ever heard of it, but he had no way of knowing it was going to be big. Excuse me. But with facing this kind of long-term planning, you have to plan long-term, or you're going to lose. And now, for 15 years, I was a consulting business analyst. That means companies would bring me in, and sometimes they had a specific problem for me to solve. Sometimes they would just say, something's wrong. We don't know. Find out. Here are the symptoms. And that taught me a lot about how things work, and about planning, and about thinking ahead when I saw people that didn't. And hopefully I've learned a lot from other people's mistakes. But I believe the plan that's going to work is retreat, regroup, rebuild, and retake. Because right now we're like a World War I army that just hit the enemy trenches, and there's all kinds of scattered fighting. You look all around you, and you can see all different kinds of uniforms and badges, and maybe one of those guys is from your outfit. Some of them are enemies, some of them are friends, some of them their coat is off, and you can't tell, and they picked up a helmet that belonged to somebody else because theirs got blown off. You don't know who's who.
Well, let me. You mentioned Zionism. We're being set to go to war with the Muslims. All the programming, from everything from even patriotic publications like WorldNet Daily.
Yeah.
Are urging war, and the Tea Parties. Oh my God, the Tea Parties are urging war with Iran. Now, have you ever heard of Jonathan Williams? Do you recall that? He wrote the legions of Satan in 1781.
Boy, it rings a bell, but
He said that General Cornwallis revealed to George Washington during the signing of the Articles of Capitulation signed by Cornwallis at Yorktown that a holy war will now begin on America, and when it is ended, America will be supposedly the citadel of freedom, but her millions will unknowingly be loyal subjects to the crown. Cornwallis went on to explain what would seem to be a self-contradiction. Your churches will be used to teach the Jews' religions, and in less than 200 years, the whole nation will be working for divine world government. That government that they believed to be divine will be the British Empire. All religions will be permeated with Judaism without even being noticed by the masses. They will be under the invisible, all-seeing eye of the Grand Master of Freemasonry, who, you know, is supposed to be the devil. So, your opinion on that?
That man has succeeded admirably.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
And you know, I've always maintained, Joshua, that a war is being waged right now with the real enemies of liberty operating within our borders. Even the mainstream is repeating that observation these days, because they would have you believe that people like me and you are the enemy. As the elitists expand their definition of enemies, the battle will begin to be bloody.
Oh, like it hasn't already?
Well, we've got over 50 million Americans that have been murdered in this country by an invading force that the mainstream terms illegal aliens.
They've killed 50 million since they started coming in?
Since 9/11. I'm sorry, let's see, no, not 50 million, 50,000. 50,000 Americans have been killed. But 250, they estimate that 250 million people have been killed this century by their own governments. China, Russia, Germany, South Africa,
yes.
and of course now the United States, where we have more people in prison right now, Joshua, than any communist country out there, including Red China with 3 times our population. What the heck is going on?
Red China has 6 times our population.
6 times, okay.
Yep. The number is larger than the official number. Because you actually can have a second child if you're careful about it, but that child is essentially a slave because they can never get their equivalent of a Social Security number. But anyway, they've already drawn first blood. They have. And for long-term planning, I say that the absolute first thing you have to do is get physically together with a group of people that you've been through enough stuff to know that they will pull triggers when it matters, and they'll keep their mouth shut when it matters. Here's why. In Lexington and Concord, the government basically sent a very large SWAT team to take some weapons from religious nuts. That's what that was about. And the locals heard they were coming, and they said, no, wait a minute. I know these people. And yeah, some of their ideas about God are a little screwy, but they are stand-up, stone-cold honest. And they wouldn't do anything that would actually hurt anyone else. They argue on Sunday morning. That's it. And so when that SWAT team arrived, it ran into trouble. Now, ask yourself today, if a SWAT team came and surrounded your house, is there any group of people that knows you so well and says, no, he would never do that, and they trust their own judgment enough to attack that SWAT team from the outside and bust you out of there? Is that group of people anywhere on this planet, particularly are they within reach of your house?
No. And the reason I started the militias around the country is because that is the exact purpose of the Second Amendment. That's what it means. So because you're a member, if you're between the ages of 18 and 45, you're a member of the militia.
That's right.
And I wanted that to happen. Now there is a group of people that would do that, but they are under severe attack right now, just as I've been for the last 20 years.
Well, and
they're called veterans. They're called veterans, and they're trying to demonize the veterans. Homeland Security's demonizing the veterans. They're trying to turn people against the veterans, and veterans are our best defense. It's a last resort.
Yeah, but that group of people also is not within 10 miles of the house where they might actually help in a situation like that.
That's right.
And you have to be physically, basically able to get within weapons range before it's too late. That's how close someone has to be.
Well, that is the reason. You know, I've been reporting on this whole New World Order takeover for 20 years, and I wanted to have an answer. That's why I came up with the plan for Liberty Village, because it's basically structured like a plantation. It's basically structured as the basis of all civilization, the family farm. We got people in the chat room right now that are growing orchards and growing trees and growing food and selling them to their neighbors and providing them to their neighbors. So
they're going to get swatted.
Yes, they will. That's the whole point. But if we've got villages set up where people are this is their home. This is their home. And they've got veterans there to take advantage of their experience to protect them.
Yep.
And the other thing, now grow your own food.
Yep.
And we grow organic food. We don't allow Monsanto genetically modified food with rat poison built in.
Right.
We don't need that.
No, we don't. Well,
now,
I think
let me add I'm sorry. Let me just finish this point. The point is that Obama's idea and the government's idea of greening America is to pay off a few $billion to their cronies for technology that doesn't work.
Well,
they want to put windmills on the top of mountains over here, sell the top of the mountain to a foreign company so they can pipe that energy from those wind generators down to you.
Yeah.
And sell it to you. Why don't we just generate our own power the way you plan on doing on your boats?
Well, our boats are going to use wave motion to do it. And we could certainly do that. The United States has enough coastline. We could supply all our electrical needs without burning any noxious product at all. There is a limit in terms of how much wave power there is, but 3/4 of the planet is covered by ocean.
Well, we also have the up on my website. The answer for 2012 is hemp and hydrogen. All we'd have to do with just minor conversions.
Yes.
Toss a hose over the side of the ship and power the motors with the hydrogen we got from the water itself.
That's correct. You need just generate electricity, run that through the water, that cracks the water into hydrogen and oxygen, induct that into the cylinder of the motor and burn it, and it becomes water again, and just put that into your fresh water tank. Yes, you are correct. And, well, fact is, the New World Order has decided that they're going to deny us hemp no matter how many of us it kills in the process. So,
I've said, if a man with a badge can walk up to you and say, "What's that in that pipe, son? What's that in your pocket?" You live in a police state.
Yes, if someone else decides what your rights are, you're a slave. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, one of the key problems I didn't realize I was planning for Fukushima when I started the research team 12 years ago, and we got on building these life yachts, working out the designs anyway. I haven't built one yet, so I'm not misleading anybody. Was when things get bad where you are, it is vitally important to be able to move. And that whether you're in the military or civilian. If things are bad, for whatever reason, you've got to be able to move, and it has to not bankrupt you. We saw this in World War II, where wealthy people became paupers because of the costs of becoming a refugee. It's just god-awful. And yet, today, I envisioned that as political trouble and police state trouble and, riots and wars and cats and dogs living together. No, it's Fukushima. The radiation from Fukushima is killing us and destroying our DNA as we speak. Now, it's going slowly. Your children aren't going to be shambling trolls that are conceived this week. However, 50,000 of them already in the U.S. have died. I'm sorry, 15,000. There have been an additional 15,000 stillbirths attributable to Fukushima. That's not an accident or an environmental concern. That's genocide. And
they have been. Excuse me for interjecting this, but hell, this is written in stone. They spent a lot of money to build the Georgia Guidestones that say they got to reduce the world's population to a manageable 500 million.
Yep. And, to deal with something like Fukushima would not be all that difficult, right? But they don't want it to be dealt with. This is one of their great weapons. It's always been their plan to render the northern hemisphere uninhabitable while they retreat to the southern hemisphere. And then after we're all dead, then they'll come back and clean it up and take care of things. And to fix Fukushima, all you need is a remote-controlled bulldozer, a remote-controlled backhoe, and lots of those lead-lined casks for storing nuclear gunk. And from remote, you send in your bulldozer to punch its way into the building, send the backhoe to dig the crap out of the spent fuel pool and the reactor core itself, and put it in those stupid lead-lined casks and lift it out of there with a helicopter. But they won't do that. I sent that in by email. I told them, guys, this is fixable. But they're not going to fix it because they want it that way.
And they're not going. I mean, such a simple thing, a remote control bulldozer. Because we can fly planes to kill Americans in other countries all around the world.
Yeah. One thing I learned as a consulting business analyst, I learned over and over, and it was burned into me, that when people who have expert advice available do something that achieves a result that you or I may think is bad, or even their boss may think is bad, upon closer examination, we will always find it was on purpose. Always. Every stinking time. If you look at, some $2 million waste project that a vice president put together, the president doesn't like it. He thinks it's a waste. Everybody else thinks it's a waste. When I interviewed the VP and I finally got him to talk, I always found he had a reason. Now, he may have been a dishonest or dishonorable man, and he was using the company's money for something the company didn't want it meant for, but he always had a reason. It was never a mistake. I don't believe Fukushima was a mistake.
As Defense Secretary James Forrestal told McCarthy, if they were just stupid, occasionally they'd make a mistake in our favor.
Yeah, if only. Except that both sides were being run by the same side there. The whole Cold War was a puppet show. World War II was scripted.
That's right.
World War I was a puppet show.
Yes. And I've asked that too, Joshua. Who won the Cold War?
Not me.
Not me. There's no the wall. They tore the wall down so they could walk over to New York. My God,
Yeah, well, remember, they always give us false opposites. Communism versus capitalism. Which group of slave masters should you work for?
The same thing that you just mentioned, fascism and communism. They planned on setting fascism and communism against each other I mean, to me, that's like the Republicans and Democrats. That's two wings of the same friggin' bird.
Well, and most people don't know that World War II, the war between Germany and Russia was 5 times as big as the rest of World War II put together. I mean, that was the main fight, like Howard Pike said, between Nazism